Tell your friends. Tell your friends about Hooks and Ladders, but also about songstudio.ca. You can get all kinds of information about songwriting, tips, and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, like, follow, and subscribe. That's what we need. That's what you need.
Here's another peek at what we did at SongStudio Online last August. Hope you enjoy.
To wonder, how did you get into mentoring in the first place? Because you and I met, I think, doing a workshop 100 years ago through the Songwriters Association of Canada. I just like, what led you to feel you had something to contribute in that way? And, and given how busy you are, making music and producing music and so forth, you've made time to do it. And I think it's fantastic. I think many people have benefited, but I'm just wondering, what made you think of doing it? Was it a question if you just got asked and you thought, yeah, I can do that? Or how did it work?
Well, all of us initially, when we're starting out, writing songs when we're young, the influences that we've had from other songwriters are profound and palpable. And certainly when I actually was in a room watching Bruce Cockburn perform when I was in grade 10, him telling this, he wasn't like acting as a songwriting mentor, but he was talking about his songs and how he wrote them. So that was having an incredible value on how I then turned around and wrote songs. Or I'd go to the riverboat and watch the late Harry Chapin, and his stories that informed his songs, in some cases, were even more interesting than the songs. And so I was sort of mentored indirectly by going to watch Jackson Browne or Gordon Lightfoot or Bonnie Raitt, when I was a kid, when I was too young to have a driver's license. And then what happened was I never considered that I would do that kind of thing, meaning teaching songwriting, because I always thought that maybe that would be a hard thing to do directly. We do learn how to write better songs. We are taught, but we're taught usually just by listening to music. In the same way that authors are often taught that with an author, they say, you got to read a lot of books, to be a better writer. But then I just started getting asked to do this, for example, by SOCAN, where they would have this traveling caravan of a publisher, an A&R guy, a songwriter, and a producer. And we'd go from city to city right across Canada. And there would be events called like Date with a Tape, where maybe there'd be 150 up and coming songwriters in the audience, and we would listen to maybe a minute of maybe 20 different songs and then give our feedback. So it never occurred to me to actually do it. I was asked to do it, and then I agreed to do it. And I was just moved mostly by how enthusiastic these young songwriters were. And I was also quite surprised that they didn't usually become defensive as to what I had to say. I always tried to say it in a positive way, in a healing yet constructive way, to always encourage. But still, I was really touched by how excited and fresh and enthusiastic these songwriters were, and that I think then reinforced me to want to do it even more. And I'm head of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for Anthem, which is a huge music corporation. So because I have that role, I'm often going to schools, say in Nashville, disenfranchised areas where kids have won scholarships to study music in high school. And then it's a lot of fun then to listen to their songs and interact with them, because I know what they've gone through and what they're going through, and how the power of music can be that one thing that can lift you out of a life of oppression.
Yes. Yeah. Music is such a powerful gift. It's the reason why we're all here right now. And it's a really beautiful thing. And I think it's also beautiful that you've taken on this mantle of educator as well, and mentor, because watching you in action, I can't say it enough. It was revelatory for me, because you were just so good at it, so good at doing that thing where you're being constructive, also supportive and healing. But getting to the point, not holding back, saying, no, I think that you think about doing something different here or whatever. It was great to watch. But it does beg the question, I think, that I get asked when I tell people that that Alistair and I, run songwriting workshops, or that I teach at Seneca College. The people say, "Can you teach songwriting?" As if it's a mysterious, it's alchemy or something, which I think it is to a point. But how did you, like, you listen to songs, but how did you learn to talk about it? How did you learn to communicate your thoughts? And actually, I'm going to ask a bigger question. How much, like, if we're only writing for ourselves, I get asked this quite a lot. If we're only writing for ourselves, well, why does it matter, whether if all songwriting is subjective, which I don't believe it is, but if we're writing for ourselves, why bother going to a songwriting workshop? Why listen to somebody else's input? Like, why worry about what somebody else thinks? How much are you aware of the audience when you write? Sorry for the long question.
That's okay. I'm usually not aware of the audience at all. I'm usually lost. I'm just sort of totally lost and absorbed in the process of writing. And as you know, songwriting in a way is almost like a deep meditation, because you have to go so deep into your unconscious that it's almost scary. I think that's why people that are creative for a living often have all sorts of issues with substance and alcohol abuse, because what we're doing is we're going so deep into our creativity that we're going to areas that we don't usually go to, because it unleashes so many strong and powerful emotions that once we finish writing the song or working on the book, we've got all this emotion swirling around us that we don't tap into usually. And so by going into that deep creative unconscious place, you're just so lost in the process that you're not thinking about the woman that you're going to be writing a song about, or whether the audience is going to respond, or whether the radio is going to respond. In my experience, Blair, it's always the songs that have been the most personal that have been the most successful. And so if I was to really analyze it as I was writing, I would probably think, oh, I can't write this because it is so personal. So that I just write it. Then I get more calculating when it's time to make a recording. I have to then go through 30 songs to decide which 11 are going to be on the final compilation. But I don't have any sense of anybody listening to my songs or reacting in any way, shape, or form as I'm writing them.
That's really interesting. And that remains true through the editing process, because for me, I start thinking about, okay, well, I can't have 3 verses before the first chorus because that's too long. It's too long to wait. And that puts me in the headspace of the listener, if I were listening to this song, I'd be like, come on, get to the chorus.
Right. Well, I think that you learn those things sort of almost academically, perhaps when you're younger. And then you get to a point where when you've been writing for over half a century, a lot of these things you've inculcated them almost unconsciously. So your choruses just always seem to hit before the 60-second mark. Yes, I suppose that's a rule. But that being said, it's just like you've learned all these rules through osmosis almost, and now you're not thinking about the rules. They just sort of naturally happen that way. My song usually will never be over 4 minutes long. I'm not saying it has to be that way. It just seems to be the way I create the song. So the structure is pretty solid, but it comes from, again, over half a century of writing songs.
Of course. Yeah. My tendency, and of course this would be different for you, I think, but my tendency is to think, they don't want to hear from me for more than 4 minutes. Like I think, come on. I don't want to presume that the audience is going to be so fascinated with what I'm writing. So I'm trying to get it in there and get in and get out, without bothering too many people.
Well, I suppose one of the things that's ideal about a great song is you kind of want that listener, as he or she has heard the song, to want to hear it again.
Yes.
So, I know it's a kind of an old-fashioned way of looking at things as an entertainer from so long ago, but I kind of like to feel that you're leaving people wanting more, and so if the song 2 minutes 40 seconds, I mean, some of the greatest songs are 2 minutes long. You listen to some of those Beatles songs or Love and Spoonful songs, they're like 2 minutes, or those great Tammy Tyrell, Marvin Gaye duets. written by
Yeah.
Ashford Simpson, 2-minute songs. That's
Yeah, and
great.
they don't feel too short.
Oh,
They just feel perfect.
it feels
So,
like
yeah.
you've listened to it and seen a movie when you listen to Ain't
Yeah.
No Mountain High Enough.
Thanks for taking a glimpse with us inside the Song Studio workshop from last August. Stay tuned for more.